If you've been wanting to become a content creator, but the idea of dealing with all of the legal stuff is literally terrifying, then this is the episode for you to watch. I have Ms. Kameron Monet. She is a content creator, a YouTuber, an attorney, and she's going to give us all the legal tea on influencer marketing. And I love that Kameron loves to talk about prioritizing self-care and mental health. And so we weave mental health in our episode. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the episode. Everyone, welcome back to the podcast. I've already said all the amazing things about our guest today, and I'm really so excited. I want to introduce you guys, Miss Kameron Monet. Kameron, say hi.
Hey y'all, it's Kameron with a K. I'm so excited to be here and get into the tea.
So I found you through Catherine Manning because you guys were just so hilarious. I just loved your energy. And then on your Vlogmas, you're like, I want to be on more podcasts. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm launching my podcast. Let me just hit her OBM up and see if we can make this happen.
Yes, I'm so excited. That's definitely one of my goals this year. So thank you for helping me work towards that goal.
I didn't know, but I think I've spoken to your OBM before. I think she follows me on Instagram. And I was like, oh, like her name sounds familiar because it's a very unique name. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I've like talked to her before. So I love that you delegate and that you have that support. I'm sure that's how you are able to survive because it's a rough industry to be in.
It absolutely is, especially when you're doing it yourself. It can be overwhelming. It can be a lot. Also, I live in the city. So if you hear city noises, I apologize in advance, y'all. But yeah, she's amazing. She actually mentioned that she knew you too. She was like, wait, I think I know somebody. You should definitely do this podcast. I was like, girl, I'm definitely in.
Oh
So
yeah, it's such a small, it's so small. It's such a small world. So I'm glad we're able to be connected. And I always like to start us off by just really introducing you to my audience, getting to know a little bit about like what where did it all start? Because I know where you are now is not where you were when you started. So paint us a picture. If this
yeah.
was your opening scene in your movie, where would this journey
Oh,
start?
yes. Ooh, if it was a movie, it would start way further than we're gonna go today. We don't have the time. We don't have the time. But I would say it kind of all started in college. Okay, actually, let's pause here. In fact, rewind just a little bit. I grew up in the performing arts. I love being on stage. I used to love theater and just everything that had to do with like filming. So whether it was on camera, behind the camera, photos, everything, I just loved it as a kid. And I was always in like, local theaters and in my school theaters and plays. So I was like, I'm gonna go to college and I'm gonna major in theater. At my college, they didn't have theater. They were like, I mean, we can do what we can, and then I was like, also not really a risk taker at that time. And I was like, am I really gonna just do like performing? Like, what if it doesn't work? And my mom was very traditional at that time. Now she's, parents learn as we go.
Yes.
And I was like, let me just do whatever my advisor says. My advisor said, you know what? From the skills that you're telling me, try pre-law. And I was like, absolutely not. So I took one class and I really enjoyed it. And then I ended up joining the mock trial team. And I said, okay, if I apply to law school and I get in, I'll go. They let me in. So I attended law school, and all during this time, starting in college, I was on YouTube and I was just posting video content about hair and fashion and makeup and things that I love. But when I went to law school, I was like, ain't no hair, ain't no makeup, ain't no fashion. Like, I got my hair in a bun. I'm trying to study. So y'all gonna get this blog content. And that's what I did. So my audience has kind of transformed over the years and really grew up with me, which I really enjoy. So now, fast forward to what I'm doing now, I am a licensed attorney. So I did get through law school. I did pass the bar and all that. I used to work at a law firm, and then I quit in 2020 to basically bet on myself and take the biggest risk that I've ever taken in my life, which is wild, and entrepreneurship, which I love.
And it's such a big leap for a lot of people. I mean, for me, I didn't even think that was the thing that I was going to do. Just like you, traditional mom, you're like, what? You're going to work for yourself? Absolutely not. We need the 9 to 5. We need the stability, right? And I mean, things have changed so much, and you've seen it
Yes.
yourself. And you've kind of talked about like how your advisor kind of planted that seed. You're like, they let me in. Oh my gosh, that's like one obstacle. Now I'm in. What do I do?
Literally.
Throughout that time in your journey, were there any challenges that you were like, "Oof, I don't know if this is for me," whether that be law, whether that be YouTube? Were there any obstacles that were like, "Whoa, if I wouldn't have gone through that, I wouldn't have been where I'm at today?"
So many. Law school as a whole was really challenging for me. I've never been like a straight A student, or like honestly, I never really liked school. Don't tell anybody. But I guess I liked it more than I thought because I ended up doing it. But it was just really a challenge for me. I felt super intimidated. Imposter syndrome was just literally overwhelming the first day of law school because I still was like coming from the mentality of if I get in, I'll go. But like, whoa, y'all really let me in? That's wow. This is here we are. And knowing like I didn't come from a background that had lawyers in their family or judges or having those connections. And so I naturally felt really intimidated just the whole law school process. But at some point, I'd say like after my first year, I kind of got my footing and was like, no, wait, like I'm here and I deserve to be here and I'm learning like everybody else. And maybe I'm not top of the class, but I'm getting opportunities. I was getting like opportunities for the summer and clerkships and making great connections and joining the trial team. So it ended up working out. But I would definitely say just the law school process was a challenge for sure.
I can only imagine. There's used to be a kid in my class who would say like C's get degrees, and I never understood that because I've always been like an overachiever, but
Yeah.
I would wish that in school I would have not given that pressure, and I'm sure law
Mhm.
school brings the pressure.
It's just a natural competitive environment. Even if like I'd say like my graduating class, we all are really connected. Like we tried to look out for each other. I didn't ever feel like too much tension, but naturally, like law school, it's on a curve. And then in my section, we have different sections your first year of school. And I had one test, and that was my whole grade for each class. It was one exam in each class, and that was your whole grade. And it was
Wow.
like, what? I'm still trying to figure out the name of the class, like, let alone taking one exam. So it was definitely difficult. But to me, I think that was probably the best thing I've ever done for myself is investing in my law school education.
Do you think your program prepared you for where you are now? I mean, I'm like even thinking like, did they even talk about influencer marketing? Did they even talk about like, is there a influencer marketing 101 class or like elective? Like what?
No, I wish there was, and there honestly really isn't in the law school realm of curriculum. There are some I've seen out there, kind of like California, New York, some of the more like progressive states that are starting to do it in college where they're teaching in the marketing and classes and things like that. But as far as the law school context, there aren't really any avenues for us to learn about social media law, influencer marketing context, rules, regulations, guidelines, because it's so new. And law is old school. We say it's old school and ancient and so far behind. I know they probably don't even know who TikTok is.
They're like, who's
So I
she?
would say literally like TikTok, tic tac, who is it? But I would say some of the general knowledge still applies. So my contracts class still applicable. Even like business law, influencer marketing can be related to entertainment, employment. Honestly, every area of law has some type of play in it. It might not be directly correlated, but I was able to use some of my skill sets in those other areas to help me. Even when I graduated, I worked in employment litigation. And some of those employment law things that I learned, the skills I still apply now, whether it's an influencer that is trying to hire or I'm helping them with their talent management contract. All of those still kind of relate to like employment, for example.
Yeah, yeah. I love that you took that knowledge and also your experience as a like someone on YouTube and posting content and having to shift that content and allowing your audience to grow with you, learning from all that experience and saying like, wow, how can I combine that? Cuz just like you, I had the same feeling. I'm like, therapy camp doesn't have to be boring. Like we don't have to be stale here. Like you can still like really connect with your therapist and still be ethical and still be get the best out of the industry. So I'm glad that you're just a non-traditional lawyer and that you're using the traditional approaches but modernizing it by it's about time, right? It's about time that
Right.
we shake things up. I mean, and I love that there's a lot of people that are kind of like disrupting some of their industries, and I feel like that's one of you. Let's like circle back a little bit to you starting off with like helping other people with their
Mhm.
contracts, with just learning what you learned in law school and
Mhm.
applying it now to your business. Because you took the leap. You said you left your nine to
Yeah.
five.
Yep. So in law school, I really didn't even think about doing what I'm doing now. So now mainly what I do is I do a lot of consulting and helping influencers and content creators and really anybody in the digital space when it comes to like brand partnership contracts or any entertainment contract that kind of like resurface from their social media platforms. So, for example, like today, I reviewed a contract for a TV show. It's an influencer, but they're getting these other additional opportunities, and it's still within the contract realm, which I love. So, I get to consult with them, whether it's with content creation or rules, regulation, guidelines, terms and conditions, why you need to use hashtag ad, why you have to say it's sponsored, but also the nuances within contracts. And then sometimes I also am able to help them draft and customize, revise, and even influencer managers now. They're starting to come to me and say, hey, we have a whole wheelhouse of influencers. We don't have anybody that can review our contract. We would love to get your kind of opinion or your expertise on it. So I love what I do. And I would say I definitely learned it, one, me being a creator myself and not realizing every time I was reviewing my own contracts, because I've never had like a management agency that looked at my contracts or anything. So I was learning that skill and the terminology and just getting familiar with how it should look and what it was lacking. And then also adding on like now the legal expertise with coming from law school, I was able to find that happy medium, which I'm like, I can't even believe it. Every day I'm like, this is just something I would have never expected. But it's the same thing like now. There's children that are like, I want to be an influencer. I want to be a social media creator. And I love that we're kind of like starting to bridge that gap between what's professional, what's career, what's trajectory, and it's all kind of overlapping in social media.
And it's interesting because you even said at the beginning, I wasn't always a risk taker. What do you
Yeah,
think helped take those risks? I mean, you took a lot of risks.
I know.
I'm like,
No, I
well,
can't
that
say
helped,
that.
but like, what helped you just like keep going after every step of the way?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that. I would say I remember sitting in my law firm office. It was like I did what I was supposed to do as a law student. I got the law firm job downtown prior to graduating. I'm like, oh, it's December. Like I still have a whole semester. I already got my job offer. And then I took the bar and I passed the first time. It's like I'm doing exactly what I thought I was supposed to do. And I remember like a few months before I quit, I was sitting in my office and I'm like, I'm downtown. I can like walk to all the nice restaurants. I could walk for lunch and I'm getting this, and we have a beautiful rooftop. And I was like, why am I still filled? Like, why am I still so unhappy? I thought this was it. Like, this was the goal. And I realized that was someone else's vision. Like, that's what it's supposed to be. That, but that doesn't mean that's my passion. And I can just go after more. Like, just because I'm here doesn't mean this is where I have to stay. Then I also started to ask myself, okay, we're in school, we have like mile markers where you have to sit down and say, okay, well, now I graduate. What do I want to do? When you're working in the regular world, it's like, you have to create your own mile markers. So I was like, okay, every quarter I'll kind of check in and see how I'm feeling and if I'm enjoying this. And that was around the time I started to do that. And I was looking around the office and I was like, I love this job. I love the people. I love what I'm doing, but like, I don't want to be them in 10 years. So
Mhm.
what can I do now to make sure that I'm on the right path where I desire to be in life? And I was like, if I was going to take a risk, which I was so scared, this is the time to do it. It's like I'm not married, I don't have any children. This is the time to bet on myself. Also, I'm a strategic risk taker. Okay, I did have a savings, so I made sure that everything was in line, and it seemed like it was the perfect time.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that because I feel like a lot of
Course.
people don't share it. They're like, I took the leap and like
Mhm.
I just let Jesus take the wheel and it just that's how it
Mhm.
worked. Because I'm the same. I'm like, I started part-time before, like had my side stuff before I was like during the pandemic and I'm like, why am I doing this during it? Why am I leaving my job in
That was me. I'm like,
2020?
what?
What? Like, people would think I'm
Yes.
crazy if I'm doing this. I get it, that feeling of like, am I doing the right thing? But it feels right. But it's just like, ugh, it's gonna take some time for it to settle in. I'm leaving a good job. And that's another thing. I had left a toxic job to an amazing job. And leaving a
Mm,
good job that you love and that you connect with the people, that's a hard thing to let go. Cause here you
it is.
are feeling good about the situation that you're in, and then all of a sudden you're like, "But that's not what I want. That's not what I
It's like, but
desire."
still not it. And yeah, it was
Yeah.
really tough. And even feeling so clear about the decision, I still was like, "God, you sure?" And he's like, "Girl." So then I mean, I would say I got almost it was like, "You need to make a decision." It was some things that was happening where it was like, "Okay, I'm not sleeping." Like I other people are starting to, "Are you okay?" Like my work product was good and social media was good, but it was like I wasn't good. And I realized like if I'm not good, it really doesn't matter what else is out there. And I would say like I'd say becoming a better version of myself journey and mental health and all that really like escalated and around that time when I was like, I just need to figure out what's best for me right now. And if that looks like making a decision on one of these, I still am licensed today. I can always go back. I have options. Just take a second and do something for yourself for once. And it was a scary thing, but it was the best decision I've ever made.
And what nobody tells you about entrepreneurship, it's going to be the biggest self-development journey of, like, your life because you're constantly learning all of these things. Like, even just talking about legal stuff, like, whenever I first got a contract, I'm like, I, like, physically felt like, "What do I do?
Yeah.
What is this? Like, I'm gonna go to jail. Like, I am going to jail if I don't know how to read this. No one prepared me in school for this." And I'm just curious for you, like, coming from you going to school, coming this, did you ever have that feeling of like, "Oh my gosh, how do I do this? This is scary." I think a lot of people feel scared to even get legal advice. Like, I just feel like this lawyer's gonna rip me to shreds. Like, they're just gonna tell me that I'm like,
Yes, but like I love hearing stories like that because I feel like I give the opposite of that. I want to be approachable. I want to be personable, relatable. It's like, yes, I have this expertise, but what I love about working with creators is like I can meet them where they're at because I am a creator. I have dealt with brands that didn't pay on time. Okay. I have literally dealt with situations where my camera broke and I'm not able to meet a deadline. So I can relate to a whole different level. But for me as an entrepreneur, my pain point was like finances because I was so used to getting a salary or like law school where it was just like tuition and like scholarships. It was like cool. And then it was like, I'd say about 6 months into entrepreneurship, it was like, oh, wow. Oh, okay. Let me
Wow, the pressure is getting worse.
like, this is a lot. And it was just like
I'm
a
gonna
learning
insert
curve.
that meme here. Like, let's
No,
just
literally, it was a learning curve when it comes to hiring. So I was like, hi, because I'd hired someone before I quit to try to like alleviate some of the stress. And it was like, girl, you have to quit. Stop trying to make up excuses. But so it was like hiring and then firing and then like learning about that and how to be a better leader, how to be a better just like communicator in business. And then also how to find that balance between you left a really high working volume environment to do that again in your business. No. So let's reevaluate that, and it took some time. I'd say it took a whole year really for me to feel like, okay, I kind of have my bearings in this entrepreneurship. And I still learn something new every day. So tomorrow you may get a different answer.
yeah, I think every day brings its new challenges, and even, like, having to, like, fire someone, hire someone, like, those are all things that take
Mhm.
decision, and making decisions creates fatigue. And I think
Yeah.
that's also what one of the scariest things about, like, looking at a contract as a creator and then making a decision, "Do I work with this brand? Do I not?" Because I don't know, but, like, for me, because I'm a therapist, I make a decision based on, like, okay, what's gonna work for my mental health? I know
Mhm.
not everyone does that because when you are, let's just say you took the leap in entrepreneurship, you need the money.
Listen, okay. Yeah. Yeah. I get that.
I'm curious, if what are some things, if we want to keep a open mind but also protect ourselves, what are some of the, like, legal pitfalls that you see creators, influencers, YouTubers, that they should be aware when it comes to these, influencer marketing campaigns or anything in a
Yeah.
contract that could just check this out, make sure you're looking at this?
Absolutely. I mean, there are so many different things. The first thing that came to mind when you're mentioning like that kind of beginning where you're like, I just got to accept everything. I have to say yes to everything is all money isn't good money. And you will learn that extremely quickly, especially as a creator, because what happens is you'll find yourself in like this rat race and this wheel of running and running in circles. And you realize you made a mistake. And then now you have to reshoot. So then it was like all of that time that you took to try to keep with all these brands. And you're like, I'm posting, getting this content out. And then now you're reshooting. And you're like, wait, if I would have just taken my time and took 3 brand partnerships instead of 5, maybe I wouldn't have made that mistake. Because that is one of the worst things you have to do is reshoot because it's time consuming and then now you're adding in additional time. Also, let's say something happens and it's a scandal with that brand and you didn't do your research and now you presented your audience and made this connection between you and this brand and your audience is like, sometimes it's not our fault. I'll give that context, of course. But there are a lot of times some of those things can just be alleviated if you just take some time. Don't be in a rush. Don't say yes to every brand, even if the money is really good. I say no to most partnerships. I think most influencers and creators do because it's really just not worth it. It's not worth losing the no like and trust factor with your audience. It's just really not worth it. There are some things that I know if I posted this, my audience would be like, "Are you ill or are you kidnapped?" Because I know you don't use this product. I know you. for example, and I know your podcast don't know me, but don't judge me. I do not like macaroni and cheese. If I post about macaroni and cheese, my audience will literally be like, are you okay? Did they pay your whole life? Did they pay your tuition? Because why would you accept that? So you got to just make sure that you're not making sacrifices just for the money, because the money will come back. But that's also what we're talking about entrepreneurship. Work on that money mindset. Money flows to you, money flows through you, money is attainable. Because once you get through some of those things, I promise you it sounds corny and people don't like the affirmations, but I'm an affirmations girl, and that really has helped me a lot with saying no to brands. When it comes to red flags and contracts, I'd say one of the number one things is that creators aren't reading them. And I know that sounds like, what? Aren't reading them thoroughly. They're skipping over terms because they don't understand. Google doesn't always help. Ask an attorney, ask a consultant, ask your friends, your colleagues, or ask the brand. Both of you guys are going into a mutual partnership. They're supposed to look out for you like you're supposed to look out for them. Are they going to put themselves first a lot of times? Yes, and you should do that too. But asking about terms, just ask the questions and don't be afraid to negotiate. That's another thing. Creators don't understand that they can go in the contract and say, no, I don't want to do that. Or it looks like now I have additional obligations that you never discussed in the email. Therefore, I have an additional rate, an additional fee. So don't be afraid to advocate for yourself, even if you're not represented by management. But remember, whatever you agree to, it's going to fall on you. And usually what happens is, again, later on, you're doing the reshoot, or you're complaining about the brand, or you're stressed out, or you're missing deadlines. And it's because you didn't take the time to really advocate for yourself. As far as like specific terms, I can go into a whole bunch of things, but
Yeah, no, and I want you to go maybe on one or two like specific things that maybe like a word or something that is usually like,
mhm.
oh, I'm not even gonna like try because it's not gonna happen. But one of the things that I was going to ask you was, so you talked a lot about like one. I think a big thing that you mentioned was values, right? Like make sure you stay
Yes,
true to yourself, to your values, because like you said, that mac and cheese story. If people saw, they're like, she's kidnapped, she
literally.
needs help. She's like
Yes.
reaching out
They
911, but also the like one integrity, yeah, of like your audience. But I think
Mhm.
also you talked about something that a lot of people don't learn is that like whenever we feel, because this is a mutual beneficial exchange
Yes.
and people forget about that beneficial mutual exchange and they feel
Mhm.
like it's a conflict, like, oh, if I ask for like another, this,
Right.
they're going to stop working with me, and it's like a
They
conflict for
won't.
them. Did you experience in your early big before
Mm.
you even started, learning about law, did
Yeah.
you ever experience that, like that conflict, like that inner conflict, oh, I shouldn't be saying this, but did you learn from
Yeah.
those experiences?
Absolutely. I definitely felt that. And what I learned from it was this, and this is a major key. In the beginning, it's all excitement, right? The brand's excited to work with you, you're excited to work with them, and you may be nervous to ask, but that honestly is a better time than let's fast forward to when the conflict is actually a conflict. I was telling myself now from learning from that is I'd rather ask all the hard questions while we're both happy and excited and in a honeymoon phase versus when the payment is late and now I have to say, hey, the payment is late. And then they're like, well, no, it's not late. And then now it's all this aggression when we could have just dealt with, okay, this is a late fee in the beginning. This is why you need to pay 50% up front and all of these things that we could somewhat alleviate some of those pain points later when you're in a better attitude. So that's how I try to remind myself, because that's when I learned, oh, wow, I could have just, it's less awkward in the beginning. I promise you. It feels awkward, but it's less there when versus when everybody's upset.
Oh my gosh, I completely agree. Whenever you were saying, like, instead of waiting till the last minute or till when you're not receiving that, that check and you're like, Adele, hello, it's me. Like,
Literally,
hey, I'm like trying to get paid here. Because again,
literally.
yeah, it's like we wait, we avoid. And just like anything like legal, I personally have felt that way. Like I'm gonna avoid this because I don't know terms and I don't want to sound stupid. Again, whatever core belief that I may have about like asking for help, which a lot of people have these things, but like, what are some terms that you feel are easily explained, but people feel like, oh my gosh, that's so scary. I don't even want to learn.
The first thing that always comes to mind is the word perpetuity or perpetual use, which means forever. And when you Google it, it's like, oh, forever. But it's like, how does that work in this contract now? So now I know what the term means, but how does that even work together with what they're asking me? Essentially, it's usually used about how long the brand can use the content or where it's going to be used. So I just always tell creators, if you see the word perpetual use, in perpetuity, worldwide, royalty free, it's all the same thing forever, automatically just let them know, hey, I review the contract. It seems that you're requesting usage forever or for an extended amount of time. I usually don't agree to that. I agree to a specific duration. Let me know if 3 months or 6 months works for you. So then you don't even have to get into the weeds. Just have like some of those elevator pitches when it comes to some of those terminologies. And that's just one of those. There's a rare circumstance, of course, it depends as a lawyer, but there's a rare circumstance where that is applicable. But with traditional influencer marketing contracts, it just doesn't need to be there. And a lot of times it's just brands doing a copy paste, getting a general contract and putting it in there. And they usually will take it out.
Yeah.
Another term I would say, or more of like a clause, is the termination area. That's probably one of those areas where no one really ever looks at. But as a creator, you want a way out of the contract. Brands usually will put, we can terminate the contract, and then it says nothing else about y'all. So you want to make sure that it also allows you a chance to get out of the contract. Anything could happen. Using a brand, getting a scandal example, if they're in a scandal and maybe you're the only creator that didn't negotiate that out of the contract, now you're the face of that brand because all the other creators are like, we don't want to work with y'all, we're terminating the contract. And then now you're like the head of it when they're in the scandal and you have no way out of the contract. So you want to just make sure some of those things that may seem like, oh, I don't want to, that's nothing, or termination is not important, or that's not, I promise you, it isn't until it is. And you don't want to wait until it is.
Yeah, yeah, like when the whole, like, Balenciaga situation happened.
Exactly. So
I hope they
imagine.
have that in the contract.
They should, some type of termination to get out of it, to not be associated, something. Because is it rare that these kind of things happen? Yes. But does it happen? Yes. Same thing with the compensation. Late fees, is it rare? Well, not so rare, unfortunately. But is it rare? Sure. But does it happen? Absolutely.
And I think it's also our responsibility to hold these brands accountable for the terms of the contracts too. It's like it sucks to have to repeat like, "Hey, per our contract," but I mean,
Yes.
that's why it's there.
But that's easier. I always tell creators this, it's easier to say per the contract versus you having to explain it. So then let's say something awkward comes up again. Remember, we dealt with all the hard stuff in the happy beginning. Now, when something hard comes up, you can just say, hey, please see attached with the contract. We had already agreed to this. It's on page 2. Let me know if we can figure out how we can progress. So then instead of you having to say, you were late and this is why you're late, and you're trying to explain something, you can just, let's refer the contract. Let's refer the contract. Let's not argue. Let's just look at the contract because that's what we both agreed to, right? So it was mutual. And that just feels a little bit easier, especially again during those conflict time when it's already awkward. And most creators are like, I just want to create and have fun. I don't want to deal with this, but sometimes you have to.
Yeah. Is there any horror story that you could share? You can always invent a brand or whatever. You don't have to name a specific one that, like, you were like, absolutely not. Maybe just a situation, like a
Yeah.
situation. It could be a make believe situation of you're like, if you experience this, run, pack your bags, go. Just do not even
Yeah.
open that. Like, don't answer their emails.
Oh, don't answer the email. Red flags are all over everywhere.
Yeah.
So people, here's a little pro tip, y'all. Just check the email. Copy and paste the email in Google and it will tell you if it's real or not. Always look at the at. Make sure that's legit because it can say, oh, this is Nike. That's not Nike. That's a fake, a fraud. 2 quick scenarios. The first one is super quick. Whenever you reach out to a brand and they're not willing to negotiate the contract at all, they say, this is our standard contract and or legally we cannot change it. I'm out. It's a red flag because legally you can. You can always change a contract. You really, yes, lawyers being involved is so important with contracts, but you technically, Bob the Builder and his friend, they can come up with a contract together. They both agree, they both sign it. That's the contract. It's legally binding. It doesn't have to be as, extensive as it should be. There's some things that should be in there, but generally it's fine. So if a brand will not negotiate anything at all, it's a red flag because they're going to write it in the best that's going to reflect for them. Therefore, you should have the opportunity to do some negotiating as well. So this scenario happened to a client and I felt so bad. This is the story I tell all the time because I'm like, ooh,
This poor thing. This is like,
I know. It's like, girl. So she's a hair influencer and she was working with brand A, who is a hair company. So brand A reaches out, loves her content. They sign a contract, but in that contract, under the exclusivity clause, it says she cannot work with XYZ, XYZ, but not limited to XYZ, XY. The but not limited to was just a little bit ambiguous where it opened the door to, but not limited to, any related brands that may come up later. Right. But it's like, okay, this is before she worked with me, y'all. Okay. She did. Mm-mm. Fine. Brand B comes along, sees brand A content on her social media and says, "Oh, I love this. It looks so good. We want to work with you too." And she's like, "Yeah, I get two hair companies. I'm a hair creator. It's going to be great. Yay." She signs the contract with brand B, posts brand B content. Brand B emails her within very quick amount of time. Can't remember exactly. It's been a while. And they say, "Oh, no, you need to take down brand B's content because you're on a contract with us and we have an exclusivity clause. See attached." She's like, they're not listed as the name. We said, but not limited to. We didn't know they existed yet, but here they are. She has to go to brand B and tell them, I have to take it down and send them the money back.
Oh,
Luckily, brand B said, okay, we'll get you for the next campaign. So, like a few months later, she worked with them after the exclusivity clause, but
how long was
that
the
all could have been
clause?
avoided. Huh?
How long was the clause?
I can't remember. It's been over a year at this point. But it
Yeah.
was just the fact that that's awkward.
Yeah. And for someone who doesn't know what an exclusivity clause is, can you just like give us like the
Yeah.
quick definition of like what does this mean? We see this and it says you cannot work with blah 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 blah. What is it?
Right. So essentially, let's just use like fake brands. So let's say when we think of McDonald's, we're probably like, oh, their rival is definitely Burger King, like, period. Right. However, McDonald's may say, you know what, we got a chicken sandwich and we coming after Chick-fil-A. We don't care about Miss Burger King, Chick-fil-A, and Popeyes is it. So essentially, under the exclusivity clause, is who are the competitors that the brand that you're working with do not want you to work with for a certain amount of time. And this is also where perpetuity can come in because you don't want to not be able to work with any other brand forever. So they usually say, for 14 days before and after, or 7 days before and after, or 3 days before and after the post that you post on your social media, you cannot work with brand A, B, C, and D. Sometimes they put, but not limited to. And that's where the issue came up, where it's like, but not limited to who? And that gives the brand a little bit more flexibility and say, oh, wait, nope, can't post them, but not limited to. So I always tell creators, make sure they don't just say competitive brands because I may think somebody's a competitor and they're not, or I may get it wrong. Make them be specific about who and how long.
Yeah, like never be ambiguous, be very clear about who they don't
Yes.
want you to work with. And also that way you can make a more informed decision, it sounds like, because I've also seen that. I've gotten a contract where it says that and it was during like the holidays. And I'm like, ooh, do I really want to like not be able to work with
Mm-mm.
any of these brands when I know that the holidays are usually when when most
Yes.
brands wanna have content. So it's, like, also, like, the season. Like, think
Yep.
about how long this exclusivity clause is gonna last, because then
Exactly.
you're not gonna be able to make money off of,
That
the
and your niche. So it's like if all I do is hair content, you're limiting my ability to make any additional money. So if they really want that type of exclusivity, they have to pay for it. You should pay for exclusivity in general, but especially if it's a substantial amount or during the holidays. Oh, I'm not agreeing to much exclusivity or the price is extremely high.
Yes, I love that. Well, I would love for you to share because I think it's hard for us to change our behavior when we're so used to like avoiding and like not dealing into conflict. But what are some of like the and we've talked about these throughout the episode, but what are the emotional financial benefits of prioritizing the legal side of influencing contracts, all these things?
Oh, a lot. The first thing that comes to mind is just having a sense of clarity. I think a lot of times people aren't clear what they should and shouldn't do, what they can and can't do, what they're going to get in trouble for. But if you have clarity and understanding the terms and what you are obligated to do by working with somebody or doing the research or asking the brand, you just feel a little bit more at ease and having clarity on when you post, you don't have fear of, did I put the right hashtag ad, or is the brand going to sue me, or am I going to be outside of my exclusivity clause, or whatever the case may be. You just have a little bit more clarity. And for me, that brings confidence, and that also brings peace of mind because I'm not worried or scatterbrained, or when another opportunity comes up, I understand that I'm under this contract, but I can work with this brand, or I can't work with this brand, or I can tell them 3 months I can work with you. So that really, really helps with me. Also, as far as the legal side, I think what I'm trying to do is kind of take down this cloak of scariness working with lawyers and working with people in the legal profession, where it's like, yes, I am a lawyer, but that's my career. That's just my profession. That's not who I am. That's not my character. That's not my personality. It's something that I love and I enjoy and I'm passionate about. But I want people to be able to seek professional help when needed, because a lot of times you gotta go to it. I always use an example, like my dentist has a dentist, so I have a lawyer and I'm a lawyer. It's okay to reach out to people that may seem intimidating, or maybe you've had a bad experience. Keep trying, keep reaching out and get the help, because at least you have that clarity and comfort of knowing that I had a professional look at this, not just me and Miss Google.
Yeah, I love that because people who ask for help get more ahead. You can
Yes,
do it all
yes.
your damn self and like spend so much hours, even time. I think we didn't talk about that, but the emotional benefit is time.
Ooh, time consuming. Yes. Because what it'll take me very quick to look at a contract, because I'm so used to doing it. I can look at it very quickly, spot out the terms, look at it, do a quick another review, and I'm good. But if it's like if you're not used to it, it's gonna take you longer. I still think everyone should read their own contracts, even if you send it to me. But if you know someone else is more knowledgeable or they can help in other ways, why not get some help?
I agree. Yeah, I think the key is like being okay with just asking for I feel like that just with everything, whether that be
Mhm.
mental health, like anything, like
Yeah.
don't, don't let that fear of looking stupid, feeling like you don't want,
Right.
something is coming up. It's better that a professional finds it and sees and says like, hey, these are some other directions. And I think so too, like with therapy, people have that like, oh, I just don't want to tell anybody my business. I just
Yeah,
don't
like a
what
preconceived notion of like what it looks
yeah,
like. And it's like,
it's not that serious. I trust me, I'm not gonna care as much as the people in your life.
right.
And I'm gonna be objective about it, right? Not, so yeah, I love that. There's just a lot of emotional benefits to it. Well, what would you tell someone who, because I want to talk a little bit about your services. What would you tell someone who says, like, I just can't afford it? Like, what are some resources, ways that they could still be able to get a contract, to, get a consultation? Like, what are we looking for? What type of services are we looking for
Yeah.
besides what we think we may think we need to buy or the service?
Right. Yeah. So I have a few different options. So I have a playlist on my YouTube channel. It's free. It's called The Legal Tea. And I have a ton of information over there about terms, about red flags, green flags, working with brands, the whole process, my thought process on it, my predictions. Like there's so many things on my YouTube channel as a free resource, as well as the Legacy Social on Instagram. I'm not as active over there, admittedly, but on my personal pages, I talk about influencer contracts because it's just a part of my life. Also, I have a clarity call service. It's a 30-minute call. We get on the call. It's my lower end service that I have, and you can ask me anything. The only thing I don't do is review a whole contract because 30 minutes ain't enough. But we'll get on the call and like say you reviewed your contract yourself and you just have a few questions. Honestly, what I love is like there's so many people that have that call and they're like, you know what? Now that I know what these terms mean and how they apply in my contract, I can use these for other contracts. And so I get to a point where it's like, okay, there's new terms, or I need you to review this. I don't have time. So I try to make sure every time I'm getting on a call with someone or they reach out in the DMs, I give them enough resources where they don't need me. Because my goal is just to help and educate, whatever that may look like. There's some people that are like, girl, you do it. Get somebody else to do it. And I'm cool with that too. But there's other people that are like, I want the knowledge, I want to understand it, and then they can apply it from then on, which I love. So I try to make sure that, like I said, everybody leaves with something.
Yeah, I love that. And it breaks that misconception that, oh, lawyers just wants more of your money.
Because I'll even tell people there's some services like informing your business LLC. I just don't do it. I will give them how I would give the step by step of how you do it on your own. If you want to hire somebody, great. Or they're like, oh, I need a trademark. I don't do them. I refer them out to my attorney that does my trademarks. So I think there's almost a strength in asking for help for myself too. I ask other people for help and I'm honest about if I don't understand something or if I don't know something, I'm able to refer to people that are a little bit more knowledgeable in that.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's like just knowing your lane and knowing what's the scope of what you practice and what you know, right? And I think
Yes.
people see that as like, well, I don't want to, show what I don't know. And it's like if you show
Mhm.
what you don't know, you're going to go way further.
Exactly. And I also think that adds, like you're saying, that relatability factor. When I'm honest with my clients and I'm like, listen, I'm not going to charge you for this. Here you go. Or here's a link, or here's this, or here's some additional help. Because at the end of the day, the industry is still so new. And most of the times it's creators and influencers that need the help and need the knowledge and need the education because maybe they don't have a team or they don't have lawyers that they can connect with. So I always want to make sure that I'm prioritizing the education factor first. And then, hey, I got some services because I do got light bills I need to pay.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to ask you my final question, and I ask this to all my guests, and that is, what is one thing that you wish that people would just talk about more and isn't talked about enough?
Ooh, that's good. I'd say mental health. I would say mental health because I think that really controls a lot in our lives, personal, business, everything in between. Talking about it makes it feel less of a taboo. So then, therefore, when people need to seek help, it feels a little less scary or isolating because it's not a topic that's just like no one talks about it. The more that people talk about mental health and going to therapy, which is why I try to talk about it on my platforms, it kind of takes off the mask of, oh, everything's supposed to be perfect. Society's supposed to be this. It's like, no, I can literally love my career and still go to therapy. I can have amazing family and friends and travel, and I still want to be better. I still want to go to therapy. I still need a journal. I still need to prioritize me and self care and self love, and everything can look perfect. And it has nothing to do with that. I can, on my good days, on my bad days, and I'm still going to go to therapy.
Yeah, I always tell my clients, like, if you wouldn't judge someone who goes to school to get a degree. If you are going to therapy, you are working on your emotional intelligence, like you're working on your communication, you're learning skills that you or your family may not have access earlier on. And now, if you have access to it and you can bake the bridge of like, okay, asking for help, again, you're going to go way far. So I love that. Mental health is always something that we need to continue breaking the stigma. So I'm glad that you said that. But okay, so we're wrapping up. Where can people find you if they want to work with you, if they just want more of you?
Oh, great. Thank you so much for having me. Y'all can find me on the internet streets at Kameron Monet. It's Cameron with a K. I'm on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. I'm new to TikTok, but I'm in the street. Also, if you have specific questions about your contracts, about influencer marketing, social media, terms and conditions, contract consultations, all of the things, you can find me at The Legal Tea Social on Instagram and go to thelegaltea.com where all my services are held.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.